Welcome everybody to this next Faces of Orthodoxy Live. So excited. First of all, just so happy to see all three of your faces here. We've been planning this talk for a while now, and it's just great to see you all. So those of you who are following the account, Shalom and Chana's face should be very familiar. Liba is our guest tonight. We're all talking about perseverance, and really what we're trying to do is talk about, some of the essential themes that are coming out of the stories. Well, Liba just popped off. Hopefully she'll be back soon. And I really think Chana and Shalom, you'll tell us a little bit more. This is behind the scenes for our followers, of course, who've been following your stories, and thank God, the reception has been incredible. But I really think that, one of the major themes that ties both of your stories is perseverance. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to go back and accept her request to join. Hopefully she'll be able to come in. And if we'll start with you, Chana. I know you were, earlier in Faces of Orthodoxy. What were you, the third story?
Yeah, second or third. I don't know.
Yeah. You're the third. So let's just first go around the room and introduce ourselves. Just, tell us what you do, who you are, a little bit of background and a little behind the scenes. So kind of go for it.
All right. My name is Chana Blau. I am a single mother. I actually just got engaged, so not to be too long.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
That wasn't in the story.
Yes, because it just happened a week ago. So
amazing, incredible, mazel tov.
Thank you. I am a photographer, and that's about it.
Hey, 2 adorable kids.
Yes, 2 adorable children that are really, really wonderful, except when they're not, but that doesn't happen because it's social media. If it's social media, then they're wonderful and only wonderful.
Of course.
Absolutely.
When they're not moving and talking, they're just behind the camera. And Chana, I connected to you through your sister Bleemy Marcus, who I know on social media. And when I was looking for subjects, she recommended you, and that's how you got on Faces of Orthodoxy. And just real quick, why did you decide to be part of this project? What drew you to it?
I think it's important to expose just truth and real life and experiences. I think we all hide behind such wonderful moments, and everybody's so pretty on camera, and just this is the truth. I try and be positive behind my camera, but there's a lot of negative, and let it be known. We shouldn't hide.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay, Shalom, tell us a little bit about yourself, and welcome to the live tonight.
Okay. I feel outnumbered here.
Yeah, sorry.
You are. Oh.
So I'm a registered nurse working in a hospital here in New York. I've been working as a nurse for about 3 years. And
Shalom, can I stop you for a second? We got a request from some guy, Moish, who wants to join the live. I think he wants to keep you company, but I'm not going to invite him in.
Yeah.
Moish Hershkovitz, I think that's your name. We just gave you a shout out.
Very kind.
Yeah. Continue. Sorry for the introduction.
That's very kind. No, I appreciate it. I've been working as a nurse for about 3 years. On the floors, kind of powered through COVID, and kind of came up on top. And I think, especially with this topic of perseverance, that kind of kickstarts my, what we're talking about here. And I think we've all kind of persevered through that, but being in the trenches kind of really gave me a different perspective. So I'm very happy to be here with everyone.
Something I appreciate about your story, Shalom, is how you share with us, you saw this problem on the floor as a nurse where so many of your patients were lonely and they were scared because they kept watching the news, and that was just being fed to them. And you were able to provide them all iPads so that they could, number one, communicate with their loved ones during COVID. And secondly, just, I'd imagine to watch some videos and play some games and just not always be being fed, this negative news and just to be seeped to that negativity. And what I love about that, talk about perseverance, which we're going to get into, is, you can be in this situation and just be bogged down by it, or you could see how you can be the change and elevate others and yourself. I find that personally very inspiring about your story.
Thank you.
All right, Liba.
Hey. So where should I start?
I don't know. I mean, we know that you have physical perseverance because we brought you on as our guest for this conversation. Tell us a little bit about your American Ninja Warrior bit, and also why, you're passionate about this topic. This is something beyond just the physical perseverance, but
Right.
it's more than physical.
Right. Okay. So, I live in Arizona. I'm a mom of four, and I actually started on this journey in social media when I opened up my company called Spirit for Life, where I help women. Like, it's a coaching company that helps women become leaders of their lives. So build strength from the inside out, build perseverance, build resilience in all areas of our life, so that we can thrive. So that's my passion, to spread across the world. And for my own personal journey, I entered American Ninja Warrior last season. It was really scary, and I did it a lot. A big reason why I did it was, I wanted to pave the way for. I wanted to be the first one, so that other people after me it would be easier for them, and it would show girls and women that it's possible. If they want to do something, it's possible. If they persevere, it's possible. And I did it with very little training. And I was just speaking to actually someone today that I was saying how I was just there recently, and hopefully they're gonna air my because they asked me to film me making kiddush on Shabbos. I'm like, I don't think that's gonna work, but I just
Wait, so this is your second round, right?
Yeah. It was
because you qualified to go back, or
so you have to apply, and you have to get accepted. It's like 400,000 people apply. And also because I have a unique story. I will be the one and only. Meaning, if you're the one and only, it's also, the one and only woman in a skirt, and I'm the shortest ninja.
And they appreciate that.
Oh, they put me on a pedestal and filmed my skirt from the bottom up, and they did this whole thing. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So cool. Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about perseverance. I'd love to hear just from each of you how you understand this concept, how you define it, how do you define the term. And with that, go ahead and tell us a little bit about how perseverance has played a role in your life. As I said, a lot of people here are familiar a little bit with Chana and Shalom's story. This is a really opportunity to hear sort of behind the scenes. What does perseverance mean to you, and how did you utilize it? How was that a role, and how was that part of your life? So Chana, go ahead.
Understanding that there's pain out there, and yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. To understand that there's pain and suffering in the world, but choosing to continue, even though everything is telling you to go to bed and just pretend that it's not there, and ignore all the pain, ignore all the scary stuff in your life, and just get on your horse and keep going. So I think that's pretty much what how I would describe it.
So it's a choice, you're saying, basically, that you have when you're facing pain.
Yes, I very much believe it. I think it's an active decision. I'm going to make it. So
okay.
Yeah. Should I?
So yeah, keep going. I want to hear how did you learn that? How did you come to that realization? Is it through? Meaning, the question I have about perseverance is often we think you need to have these stores of perseverance, stores of resilience, so that when you face whatever major challenge in your life, you can be successful, you can handle it because you have this whatever natural inborn ability or a learned ability to persevere. So is it that, or is it that you're faced with a challenge, and through navigating the challenge, you build those muscles of perseverance and endurance?
So it's definitely the second one for me, at least. I was completely naive, never had much struggle in my life, and then suddenly something huge was on my table, and I suddenly had to figure out how I'm supposed to do really hard stuff. My whole childhood was really pretty and dandy, and I had separated in 2015, and my divorce was either going to be the smoothest divorce possible or very much not, and it turned out very much not. I was in Aduna for 5 years, and it was very, very scary. A lot of the rabbis were saying that there's always that one case that does not get her get, and I think it's going to be you. And I'm like, thank you.
Wow.
I really needed to hear that.
You're special.
It was very scary. And there's just lots of negatives, lots of, even from the outside of this outside of the world, like the people talking and hearing different sides of the story and choosing not to disparage and not to talk ill and being the bigger person in a war that is public. It's very scary. It's open to the public, yet you can't defend yourself because then you're disparaging and speaking ill. So it was, and then obviously having my 2 children and having to be positive and not falling into a depression and being scared and preferring just to go off the high end and just do things that would be easier in the moment, but not long-term smart decisions. Mm-hmm. It was very difficult, but honestly, I give my children the credit, because if they were not here, I don't know if I would have been able to follow along the appropriate, line.
Right.
It's easier to go off the deep end. Yeah, they grounded me. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the perseverance to deal with a challenge, do you feel like did you feel like you always were that kind of person, like a gritty person, or do you feel like you developed it through your challenge?
I think that I definitely developed it. I remember speaking to Charlie Harari. I needed strength. I needed help. So Charlie Harari had given me a great tool. It's popular, but at the time, people don't know to do things. It was writing a reason to be grateful, 3 reasons why you're grateful every single day, and not repeating them. So the first week I was like, okay, my eyes, my hearing, my, basics. After the first week, I was like, wow, okay, this is getting tough. At one point, I remember probably 5 months into this, or maybe a little bit less, I remember reaching into my backpack. I happen to have a pencil here. I remember reaching into my backpack at work, and my pencil was sharpened. I'm like, thank you, God. It's the best thing in the world to reach for a perfectly sharpened pencil. And at that point, I was like, wait, oh my goodness, this is what Charlie Harari got me onto that line of being able to reach for a sharpened pencil. And I was like, thank you, God. And that was it was a moment of my mindset had changed.
So that's training. You trained yourself to get to that point, right, Liba? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, she's saying all the good stuff. She's saying all the good stuff. We're gonna have nothing to say. Seriously, she's taking it all. What are we gonna say now? Thank you very much. No, I'm kidding. But yes, it's definitely a muscle.
Yeah.
So how would you define
it's a skill?
Yeah.
So I think that the thing that you asked her, is this something you're born with? We're not born with you create a good self-esteem. Obviously you can have traumas in life and it will hurt you, and it's self-esteem, self-confidence, perseverance. It's a daily work. It's a habit you create. We think that the word we like to use is motivation. I don't have motivation. You don't want motivation. I always tell people, I'm not motivated. I'm like, great. Because motivation is those fast fixes that never ever last. And you have no skills and no tools to use when your motivation wears off, right? You don't want the high. You want this is going to be so hard, but I'm going to do it, because you're going to persevere. And you know it, and you know it's going to be. You're not expecting it not to be, but you know that when you pull through, your skill of perseverance is stronger. So next time when that thing comes and hits you, or something bigger hits you, you now have a bit stronger muscle, and it's yours to keep forever, right? And if we don't have those failures, and I love the word failure, it's my favorite word, because failure is great, right? Because without it, we don't build perseverance. We don't build anything. So when it's each time that we struggle and we fall, we take that as an opportunity of saying and I don't like fluff. I'm like, oh, it's so nice. We love to struggle. We don't like to struggle. But when we do, we don't look at it and say what went on here? Let's analyze it, because we're we reflect on everything, right? Because everything is now we can take this and do different or do the same next time. So that's, you build perseverance. You can't wake up and say, she could do that because she just has this in her. Yes, we have personalities, but still, they're not born with perseverance. We create also our beliefs. Someone was saying to me, why do you continue doing American Ninja Warrior last year when you were devastated after? I was traumatized. I couldn't sleep for a month. I was literally trauma, experienced trauma, but I did it again. So why do I experience trauma? Meaning, and every stage trauma is going to be different. If I experience trauma, doesn't mean it would be for someone else, but that's how I reacted to it, right? Responded to it. I put on so much pressure on myself beforehand, so much intense pressure. I was in so many newspapers and I was all over the place, and I didn't even do it yet. And then I'm used to being the strongest, right? Always, wherever I go. And that's because the people I'm comparing myself to are not like, that's not necessarily, like, it's like, obviously, right? If I go with athletes, then I won't be the strongest. So
Okay.
I'm just used to that. And then I put on so much pressure, and I wanted to, I didn't want to just represent it. I wanted to represent really well. And I thought that meant like showing, like doing well on the course. And I've never entered a competition because they're always on Shabbos. Everyone there has been in like college, whatever, and in Olympics. And I'm like, hi. I never even ran a race. I'm from Bisaco. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. I'm like, I don't know what the heck is going on here. And they're screaming at you and they go, and like the cameras are in your face. And I like completely don't even remember the course. I don't even know what it looked like. I was so frazzled, and like I see my video, my eyes are like all over, and I jumped over the side, which like nobody does that besides me. You fall in the water. I didn't even fall in the water. And so afterwards, it was like the emotion, the intense buildup. I was there on Pesach with my entire family, had to stay in a little tiny place. Like, there's just so much I could go into it that like, it was super intense afterwards. So it's like, why'd you do it? I'm like, because the identity that I have for myself is I don't give up. Like, and that's a belief I created. I wasn't born saying you don't give up. My mother never told me that. So now I don't give up. Like on anything, I can't. That's the perseverance. But if you have a belief that says, oh, when something hard, you give up, or when it gets too hard, or when you feel you give up, that's what you do because you believe that, you know? So that perseverance, it doesn't mean you're better. It just means you don't give up. You built that perseverance, you know?
I think it's so important that you're talking about the beliefs that you have. I mean, don't you think like mindset work and self-talk is just so crucial to building that within yourself, right?
I mean, your mind is the driver. So
right,
you can heal, you're a nurse, you can you can get medical care, but like if you are mentally in a terrible place or have tons of stress, it's going to also affect your health. And sometimes people forget that and they disconnect those two things, but it goes together, you know?
Yeah. So interesting. Okay, Shalom, great lead in, our nurse here. You can weigh in on that too.
Well, I feel like you guys kind of covered all the bases. I'm
yeah.
Well,
now you got to be creative. You have to think of something good.
Well, first of all, Chana, just the fact that, everyone knows Blimi Marcus is like the head of all nurses, orthodox.
Oh, that's right. Of course.
So that's here by association. But another point of also, I had a family member who went through something, very similar, also was separated in Aguna for a number of years. So I can understand and I can see firsthand, like, the perseverance it takes to really, be there. So to be in such esteemed company is, I feel very humbled. But yes, I mean, I think perseverance is exactly what we've spoken about. It's about looking and pushing forward, overcoming obstacles, but it's also about looking at those small, positive, the minute wins that we have and building on top of that. It's not just a dark, scary tunnel, but the way we move forward is by capturing those wins, even if it's very small, noticing them, acknowledging them, and then using that to push ourselves up a little bit more. And by constantly stepping, forward and forward, that's what keeps us to keep persevering. The perseverance only is if there's an end goal and we see ourselves actually reaching someplace. Again, working, I mean, there's no greater example. We've all been through these past 2 years of craziness. And the first day when I came to the hospital and they told me, oh, you're going to this floor, and I had no idea where I was going, and we had no idea what we were doing. And we had patients literally coming up and 5 minutes later going back down, if you know what I mean. It was like a constant cycle, and we were left stranded, and it seemed like a sense of hopelessness. Like, what do we do? And then what started happening is we started having this treatment would come out, and maybe we would try this thing and we would try that thing. And even though it took some time for us to see improvement and us to see results, we did see it. A lot of nurses were standing there with their hands in their up in the air, like, what do? We have nothing to do. But when you look at the small positive improvements that patients were making, even in the smallest little bit, that led us as providers, led us as people taking care, like, we can now go on, let's go in another day. It's not all over. We could go in, and slowly but surely we saw the improvements and we saw treatments coming out, and we were able to apply that to continue pushing forward. And here we are 2 years later, and a lot of us are still standing. A lot of, you know, we went through a lot of very, I mean, traumatic
trauma. Yeah, I was just
traumatic experiences. I mean, there are nurses that will never step foot in a hospital again. There are people that just, they won't go to the hospital because of everything that's gone through. And to be a nurse, and yes, there were days that I came home and I was like, I can't do this anymore, you know, and you're putting gowns on and putting gowns off, and then you're undressing before you walk in because you don't want your kid to get something, and then you're turning around the next morning and you get 4 hours of sleep and you're back in the hospital. And then they're asking you to come in again and pull extra shifts. It was a lot. And I think what started helping us as providers is by really seeing those small improvements, you know, and seeing, oh, let's try this treatment. Even if it wouldn't work or we didn't know the efficacy or the trials were still running, you know, oh, this may be another way we can help our patients. This is another way we can get through it. And it's not just about helping others, but it's also helping ourselves, because like we were talking about mental health, you know, and mindset. It was a huge part of how we can't, you know, there's a saying, you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself. And, you know, we had, as nurses and providers, had to like really think about how we can stay sane and how can we put on face in order to care for our patients. And like another thing that Liba was saying, you know, about my, you know, belief, and, you know, there's the saying, Yeshua Hashem Karef Ayin, right? We know that Hashem can come in a second and we can, you know, see miracles. And we did. We saw me. I mean, I saw from a lady walk into the hospital. Within 3 days, she was in the ICU. Within 5 days, she was vented. Within, you know, 2 weeks, she had a trach, sent to a rehab. And 4 months later, she's walking out of rehab. It's like, you know, people who are on the brink of death, literally coming back. That gives you the push to keep going, you know, seeing the positive. Like, yes, we did see a lot of negative. And yes, a lot of people, unfortunately, you know, had, you know, tragedy. But those 1 or 2 people at the beginning who started seeing improve, wow, it's actually something we can do. We can keep pushing on. We can still do our job, and we can still, impact others and give hope. And I think that's what helped us, as, you know, helped me specifically as a nurse, to really see that, to see patients turn to say, wow, thank you very much for caring for me, or for my, you know, for my family member, or doing what you can, even though it's hard. The acknowledgement goes a long way. And as nurses, you know, sometimes we're fed a lot, you know, and given a huge task. And I think that a lot of us did persevere, and, you know, we can stand 2 years later and say, wow, we got through it. And, you know, we're able to move forward. And if I got through that, I can get through anything.
That's right. You have to bank on the successes. And like, I love what you said, like all of those moments where you succeeded, I mean, that gives a person hope. And you have to have those glimmers of hope, like you experienced in the hospital, that are going to propel you to keep doing what you're doing. Well, Shalom is a nurse and an inspirational speaker. I mean, who knew?
Oh, stop it.
No, but so here's the thing. I'm hearing how, you know, you persevered through that experience, but I feel like you were building those muscles a lot earlier with your academic struggles, not because you're not brilliant, but because your background was a little weaker than probably the average, you know, nursing students that were applying to your programs.
So I started off, I came to America at 18. I didn't have forget about a high school diploma. I didn't have any high school. I went to a yeshiva katan in Israel. I was learning Gemara, you know, full seder. Like I started off by, you know, studying for my GED, and I got my GED and I studied for it. And I used that, and I went got accepted to college. And from there, I was starting at a disadvantage because I didn't have it. So it just took a lot of catching up to do. And I think the fact that I kept going forward, and taking one step at a time with the goal of let me try this class, let me try that, let me go, you know, and I think that was a huge push for me to keep working harder, knowing that I had to work harder. I think what, like Liba mentioned, you know, when you surround yourselves with people at a higher level than you, it pushes you. You know, you don't want to work out and be the best person because you're going to slack off. When you're in the gym, you want to have someone running 40 miles next to you, and the guy, you know, lifting 50 weights, because you want to, you know, that inspires you. And I think, by starting off at a more disadvantage, so to speak, of not having that education or that, you know, background, gave me a bigger push to really try to do a lot. And I tried. And in college, I was on the volleyball team, and I was trying to, you know, kind of do everything to prove myself, and not to prove myself to others, but to prove myself to myself. I can do this. And I think that constant, having to do it on your own and not having real, family members around to really, have that support, I think it gave me a drive to try to achieve as much as I can.
I just want to say, though, it is so easy to blame all those life circumstances and use them as excuses why you can't succeed, right?
Yeah, for sure. At the end of the day, it's the only one you have to blame is yourself. Because everyone is given. Yes, there are a lot of things that happen and life circumstances that can really cause someone to really get depressed or cause someone to really, give up. At the end of the day, it's the person themselves. You have your choice, you have your destiny, and like Hashem gives us bechira. We have to take that and we have to, use that and decide how we're going to do it. And there's a will, there's a way. I mean,
that's right.
I think.
Wow. I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Can I ask you a question? So just curious because, meaning you had to work people, right? And so just understanding, because I think that there is a part of people's nature, right? That we all are born with a certain nature, and then we have nurture, right? There are people who are more emotional and they're naturally like that, right? There are people who are born somewhat more resilient, right? Like, you think of the family members and siblings, right? Some of them are with completely different personalities, and some of us can handle certain things, some of us can't in the same exact circumstances, right? So I think sometimes when people listen to, let's say, a personality let's say what you have, or let's say, me, and obviously people you hear is that they're like, well, I would never, I can never be like that. I'm so this, I'm so that, right? So it's also important to take on, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong about your personality, but to understand yourself, and also when we if you got knocked down in school or somebody said something to you, you might have gotten insulted or something, but you're like, I'm going to prove them. I'm going to do this. They can't get me, right? Even if you feel hurt, you'll still get back up because that's what you're going to do, right? Someone else, if they shoot too high and they got, I always tell people, I'm like, the reason when you try something that's really above what you should be doing, we'll give a simple example. You do a starvation diet, which are all diets, and then obviously you break it because you don't want to starve all day. So, and then you're like, I'm a failure. What's wrong with me? You did something that set you up for failure. So now you don't trust your own self. But really, that's not who you shouldn't trust. And people start not trusting themselves and believing in themselves. And so and they believe it's them. And it's the perseverance because they're doing something that they're setting themselves up for failure, right? So it's like when someone, let's say, has those experiences, the way that they build back their own personal trust, and I've never heard it said before like this ever, you don't trust yourself. That's actually what it is, right? Is to start with the tiniest little thing that you for sure could commit to and build trust. I know that I could drink a cup of water when I wake up in the morning. Just do that. And if you do that, you're a winner. And then do something else after. You can do that for 1 month. And don't overachieve. Set the tiniest goals, because who cares about what you're doing in a month? Think about what we're going to be doing in 2 years. You will be way past the person who in 12 weeks tried to do all these extreme stuff and has 5,000 steps under. So it's also don't look at anybody else. Look at yourself and build your own reserves based on where you are right now.
Right. Yeah. I think it also comes with, desperation breeds success. And I feel when there's no other option but to succeed, it pushes you. That's
a choice. You think that. And so many people don't think, oh, there's no other option. They're they go into blame or shame or resentment or anything else but me. They'll be like, it's their fault. And they don't think they don't see that.
Right.
That's why you persevere.
Right. And that's when, I didn't have another option. I was here alone. This was my chance to make it work. And that's why I looked at. I said that, I'm paying for my way. I'm paying for my college. I'm paying, I can't fail because then I have to pay it again. And, I'd have to start back. So, yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Awesome. If any of you guys who are on the live following us have questions for either Liba, Chana, and or Shalom, now's your chance. Put them in the question box down below. Stories, never mind. Yeah, there's a little question box, or you're feel free to just put them in comment down below with a question for anybody.
Oh, cool! I never saw the question box.
Yeah, the question box is there, and then also we can read. I mean, a lot of people throughout the life have been commenting, and we've been following. But now's your chance. Ask your questions. Ask away. Okay, so we're gonna be wrapping up in the next few minutes. We're just gonna close now, and again, I'm following. If any of you guys have your questions, we really wanna answer them. So many tips. Oh my gosh. I mean, I love, Liba, what you were saying about that small thing, like drinking a cup of water in the morning and like not worrying about a month from now. If you just do that every single day, look how you're going to grow. It's just so, and building the reserves. I just love that. Someone just wants to know where you're all from. So Liba, you're from Arizona, right? What city?
I'm from New York. I'm from New York, but I live in Arizona.
Uh-huh. So you were born and grew up in New York?
Born and grew up in New York, lived in Israel, and then now I'm in Arizona.
Okay. Connie, you've got a question. I'm going to read it now because it's about to disappear. On your hard days, what is it that was the most important thing to think of? First, tell us where you live. And then again, the question is, what were you thinking during those hardest days? What was the most important thing for you that got you through them?
Okay. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Not very original. For me, I think I kind of told it to you in the interview. It was the quote. What was it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I guess
you go ahead.
No, I'm blanking it. I guess life is so good
like
right now.
I've
I don't have
gotten
to
through
concentrate on the quote.
100% of my hardest days. Like I've gotten through 100% of my hardest days. Like that.
Yes, right. If I survive if I survive 100% of my hardest days, then I can continue. I can make it. And I remember I would have a specific day that was a really, really horrible day. And I was like, okay, I survived that day. I for sure can survive today. And a smaller bump, because I knew it was harder in the past. So.
Yeah. And that's mindset work. It's a mantra just to repeat it, right?
Correct.
And it's true. It is so true. Okay, Shalom, so tell us where you are. And I do want to give a shout out to Rifki5250, who earlier said here in Montreal, we are still totally in the pandemic. She was listening to what you were saying, Shalom, and she commented. So our heart goes out to you.
I appreciate it. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. Family made Aliyah to Israel, and I live currently in Brooklyn. Not so original.
Awesome. Okay. And Shalom, could you give us like a tip, a message of how we can grow our perseverance, something that we can take away from here and apply in, our daily lives?
I think it's looking back and seeing past obstacles or past accomplishments that we've in the moment thought, wow, this was so difficult. And now we look back and we're like, you know what? It wasn't actually so difficult. Like I said before, looking at those small positives is what can push someone to persevere. But I think what can push someone is by looking back at their accomplishments and saying, I did it. I was able to get through. I was able to overcome. And in the moment, it seemed like, and it's reflection. It's not just looking back. It's reflecting on. I remember I felt really bad. I felt like I was unable to get through it. I couldn't. But 2 years later, wow, look at me. I got through it. I'm fine. And that can push and that can help get you to overcome the next one by thinking, oh wow, this is so difficult. Well, it was difficult last time and I did well and I got through it. So this time I can do it too.
This reminds me, Liba, remember earlier you were talking about like the role of self-esteem and self-confidence. And I think that builds self-esteem. That is why it is so crucial. The partnership between self-esteem and perseverance. You have to tell yourself you can do something. You have to know it for yourself.
Yeah, the power of showing up for yourself is like
showing
huge.
Up for yourself. I love that. I've never heard that before. What is that?
Yeah.
What does it mean exactly?
So if you say tomorrow I'm going to wake up at is that me?
Yeah.
Hold on. What?
Her internet is sort of cutting in and out. We have about 5 more minutes left. This is your last chance for questions from Shalom and Chana and Liba. So go ahead. Yeah, finish up.
So if you make a commitment to yourself, which means you say, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow by a certain time, right? And you don't. First of all, if you don't, that means like you're basically you're losing trust in yourself. You're like, oh, I don't trust you, right? But when you do show up for yourself, there's something powerful about like I show up for myself. I stick to my commitments, and it builds that resilience. It feels great. So even if you don't reach your goal, what you wanted, you build that like strength.
And you have to have like honor and respect for yourself.
Yeah.
For yourself. Awesome. Okay, Chana, your last up, a little nugget of advice or tip from your life, how you would recommend help people grow in their perseverance.
Yes, so I had learned an amazing skill called opposite action. If anybody had taken DBT, then you'd be familiar. It is an amazing
Can you repeat it?
skill.
Can you repeat it?
Opposite action.
Repeat what you said.
Opposite action, right?
So yeah, if you're feeling like you need to lay in bed, that you cannot get out of bed, it's literally doing the opposite. If you don't want to see people, go out and see people. If you don't want to be eating right now healthy food, or if you want to snack bad food, do the opposite, get something healthy. And it's so simple, and it's able to stop you in your tracks, and like, because it's just like, it's a phrase, you're able to like hold on to a tool and say like, okay, right now I want to do this, I'm going to do the opposite and flip it over. And it's a great skill.
But it's so hard to do that. Like, how do you make yourself do the opposite?
Perseverance.
Yes.
You know what this reminds me of? Like exposure therapy. It sounds like a similar principle. Like, you're scared of something, so you have to do it. You have to get on the elevator even though you're frightened. Like, there's something that, like a wall that pushes through, I'd imagine. I'm no therapist, just full disclosure. But to me, it sounds similar to that. It's really interesting. And what I think ties into what Shalom said, and then we'll say goodbye, is I think that proves to yourself that you can do it, right? It's that small success, and that creates that. So now you can remember and go back to it during hard times and remind yourself that you did something that was difficult. All right. So thank you all so much for joining me during this conversation. I know I have gained so much, gained so many tools. I think this is just, one of these elusive concepts that we're all searching for more perseverance. And like Shalom said, certainly in the last 2 years. And we all need it, and we all want it, and we all can grow it. And that's what I really learned from each one of you through your stories and through our conversation tonight. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All
Thanks for
right.
having
Have
us.
a wonderful night, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.